Captain Jake Morrison gazed through the viewing window at the front of his ship's command center, watching distant stars drift slowly across the darkness. The USS Defiance wasn't your typical human spacecraft. She was larger, more powerful, and loaded with cutting-edge weapons that had never seen actual combat. Jake and his team had spent half a year testing these revolutionary systems in the far reaches beyond Earth, ensuring everything functioned perfectly. Only the gentle purr of the engines broke the silence. These calm moments meant everything to Jake. They reminded him exactly why he'd fallen in love with space travel. But tranquility rarely lasted in his line of work. "Captain Morrison, sir?" Lieutenant Amy Parker called from her workstation. Young but exceptionally talented, she quickly moved her hands across the controls while monitoring signals from throughout the sector. "Something unusual is coming through the emergency frequency." Jake moved toward Amy's station. The rest of the bridge crew glanced up from their duties. Commander Lisa Carter, responsible for all weapons systems, stepped closer to hear. "Chief, Engineer Danny Walsh emerged from the lower level where he'd been inspecting the new power cores." "What have you found, Parker?" Jake questioned. Amy adjusted several controls and a crackling transmission filled the space. The audio was fragmented and difficult to make out, but the terror in the voice was unmistakable. "This is Haven Colony under attack. Unknown ships. They're destroying everything. Please, anyone help us." The broadcast dissolved into white noise. Amy attempted to restore it, but only emptiness remained. "New Haven Colony," Lisa Carter stated. She brought up a navigation chart on the primary display. "That's 3-star systems from our position, roughly 50,000 residents." Jake's heart sank. New Haven was among the more recent human settlements. The majority of inhabitants were families seeking a fresh start far from Earth. They possessed basic defensive capabilities, but nothing capable of withstanding a serious assault. "Get me more details," Jake instructed Amy. "Learn what's unfolding there." Amy worked intensely for several minutes, managing to capture only fragments of additional transmissions. What she uncovered made everyone on the bridge fall silent. "Sir, I'm receiving reports from their defense installations. Unidentified alien vessels appeared 2 hours earlier. They haven't attempted communication. They're simply annihilating everything. The orbital defense stations are completely destroyed." Danny Walsh examined the data on his monitor. His expression turned grave. "Captain, if we push our engines to maximum, we could arrive in 18 hours. But, sir, we're heading into an unknown situation." Jake considered the 50,000 souls on New Haven Colony. Innocent men, women, and children who'd simply tried to create new lives on a faraway world. If alien forces were attacking them, those colonists stood no chance without assistance. The communications panel chimed softly. Admiral Pete Collins materialized on the display, calling from Earth Command thousands of light years distant. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral spoke. His tone was rigid and commanding. "We received the identical distress signal. You are commanded to return to Earth right away. The Defiance is far too valuable to risk in battle. We're dispatching the 3rd Fleet to assist New Haven Colony." Jake understood the implications immediately. The 3rd Fleet was 5 days from New Haven. Before their arrival, everyone in the colony would perish. "Sir," Jake responded cautiously, "the 3rd Fleet won't arrive in time. We're the sole ship positioned close enough to intervene. Captain, your vessel is a prototype. It contains systems worth more than whole planets. I cannot permit you to endanger it against an unidentified enemy. That's a direct command." The transmission ended. Admiral Collins had disconnected, but his directive was crystal clear. Jake surveyed his crew. They all watched him, anticipating his decision. Lisa Carter voiced her thoughts first. "Captain, if we obey orders and head back to Earth, those colonists will perish." "The ship has never faced genuine combat," Danny Walsh noted. "We can't be certain if our new armaments will function against alien technology." Amy Parker continued monitoring her equipment. "Sir, I'm detecting additional signals. The aliens have begun attacking the planets themselves. They're not merely destroying, The orbital stations anymore, they're targeting the cities. Jake returned to the viewing window and stared out at the stars. Out there somewhere, 50,000 people were struggling for survival. His vessel might be their only hope. But if he violated orders and led the Defiance into combat, his military career would end. If the ship was lost, Earth would forfeit years of scientific progress and development. Yet if he did nothing, innocent children would die. Jake turned to confront his crew. "Danny, how long until we're combat ready?" Danny grinned. "Give me 2 hours, Captain. I'll guarantee every system performs flawlessly. Lisa, I need you to examine everything we understand about alien technology. Locate their vulnerabilities." "Yes, sir," Lisa responded, already accessing files on her terminal. Jake approached Amy's station. "Keep monitoring those transmissions. I want complete awareness of everything happening at New Haven." "Captain," Amy whispered, "are we truly going to disobey direct orders?" Jake looked at her, then at his entire crew. These were dedicated people who'd volunteered to test an experimental vessel. They'd understood the dangers when they enlisted. Now they faced the greatest danger imaginable. Sometimes, Jake explained, doing what's right means bending the rules. Those colonists need assistance, and we're the only ones capable of providing it. The bridge remained quiet momentarily. Then Danny Walsh spoke up. "Well, Captain, I suppose we'd better ensure this ship is prepared for battle?" Jake smiled warmly. He commanded the finest crew in humanity's fleet, and they were about to demonstrate it. The USS Defiance altered course toward New Haven Colony. Behind them, Earth and safety diminished. Ahead waited an unknown adversary and 50,000 people requiring their help. Jake Morrison had made his decision. Now he simply hoped he'd chosen correctly. The USS Defiance emerged from hyperspace near the New Haven star system's edge. What Captain Jake Morrison witnessed through the viewing window froze his blood. 3 gorgeous planets that had housed 50,000 people were now ablaze. Massive, fires blanketed the surface of each world, and dense black smoke climbed into their skies. Where thriving cities once existed, only glowing impact craters remained. "My God," Amy Parker breathed from her station. She stared at her monitors in absolute shock. Drifting in orbit around the planets were the shattered remains of New Haven's defense installations. The metal frameworks had been sliced into fragments and dispersed like discarded toys. Some sections still radiated red-hot from whatever had obliterated them. But the most disturbing sight was the alien fleet itself. 12 vessels glided through the system like graceful predators. They weren't constructed like human ships with angular lines and metal plating. Rather, they appeared organically grown with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shimmer and shift. Each craft matched a human cruiser in size, but they moved with extraordinary grace and velocity. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Rick Barnes announced from the science workstation, "I'm analyzing the alien vessels." "Sir, these ships are biological." "What do you mean biological?" Jake questioned. Rick reviewed his readings once more to confirm. "The hulls seem constructed from living tissue. It's as though they cultivated these ships rather than manufacturing them. And, sir, the hulls are regenerating themselves. I can observe damage from the defense stations being mended as we watch." Commander Lisa Carter was examining the alien weaponry. "Captain, observe this." She displayed the weapons analysis on the central screen. Their main armaments don't launch projectiles or energy blasts like ours. They're discharging some type of molecular disruption field. It literally tears apart whatever it contacts at the atomic level. Jake felt his fingers tighten on the command chair's armrests. No surprise the defense installations had been eliminated so effortlessly. Human defenses and shields were engineered to deflect projectiles and energy blasts, not something capable of unmaking matter itself. "Sir," Amy announced, 3 of the alien vessels are separating from the planetary assault. They're coming directly toward us. Jake checked the tactical readout. The 3 bioships were approaching the Defiance far faster than any human vessel could manage. Within minutes, they'd reach weapons distance. All personnel, Battle stations. Jake broadcast over the ship's internal communications. This is genuine. Prepare for engagement. Crimson alert lights pulsed throughout the vessel as the crew rushed to their positions. Danny Walsh's voice transmitted from the engine compartment. Captain, all systems are operational. The quantum shielding is completely charged and the plasma weaponry is online. Jake had never discharged the plasma weapons in actual battle. No human had. The armaments were so advanced they existed exclusively on the Defiance. If they malfunctioned, his crew would perish. Open a transmission channel to the alien vessels, Jake commanded Amy. Channel active, sir. Jake rose and spoke distinctly. Alien vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human starship Defiance. We demand that you cease your assault on the New Haven colony and evacuate from this system without delay. Silence followed for several heartbeats. Then the alien ships responded, not through words, but through violence. 3 streams of molecular disrupting energy shot forth from the bioships. The beams resembled twisted ribbons of illumination that appeared to warp space itself. They hammered the Defiance's experimental quantum shielding with devastating force. The vessel trembled, but the shields maintained integrity. Jake experienced a flash of relief. The new protective technology was functioning. Return fire, Jake commanded. All plasma weapons, focus on the leading ship. Lisa Carter's fingers danced over her controls. Launching plasma weapons now. The Defiance's new armaments illuminated space with intense blue-white energy. The plasma stream struck the lead alien craft and burned through its living hull like fire through tissue. The bioship attempted to heal itself, but the plasma energy proved too concentrated. The alien vessel fragmented and detonated in a spray of organic wreckage. The crew celebrated, but their triumph was brief. The second alien ship attacked again, and this time, Jake felt the Defiance's shielding buckle beneath the onslaught. Shield integrity at 60%. Danny reported from engineering. Sir, I don't believe it can withstand many additional hits like that. Jake clenched his jaw. Fire again. Focus on the second ship. The plasma weapons discharged and another alien craft perished in spectacular fire. But the third ship was adapting. As the Defiance's weaponry struck it, the bioship's hull began transforming. The exterior became mirrored and portions of the plasma energy deflected away without damage. Captain, Rick called out. The alien ship is evolving. It's modifying its hull structure to counter our weapons. Tony Rivera, the gunnery officer, wrestled with his controls. Sir, the plasma weapons are overheating. If we discharge again at maximum intensity, we risk damaging the ship's power distribution. The third alien ship unleashed its molecular disruption beam again. This time, a section of the Defiance's quantum shielding collapsed entirely. Jake felt the vessel shudder as the alien weapon contacted the hull beneath the protective layer. Hull rupture on Deck 7, Danny reported. Emergency barriers are sealing the compartment. Jake recognized they were in grave trouble. The alien craft was adapting to their armaments while their own protections were collapsing. He needed to act decisively. Amy, transmit a communication to the remaining alien forces. Inform them we possess additional weapons like those that eliminated their companions. Tell them to abandon this system or we'll annihilate them all. It was a gamble, but Jake hoped the aliens would accept it. The third alien ship abruptly ceased firing. For an instant, Jake thought his bluff had succeeded. Then he grasped the truth was far grimmer. Captain, Rick stated with alarm in his voice. The alien ship is broadcasting information to the rest of their armada. They're distributing data about our weapons and defenses. On the central display, Jake observed as all 9 surviving alien ships halted their planetary bombardment and rotated toward the Defiance. Their hulls were already beginning to transform, adapting to the plasma weaponry they'd just discovered. Sir? Lisa whispered. They're all approaching us now. Jake regarded his crew. They'd managed to eliminate 2 alien vessels, but now they confronted 9 more that understood precisely what the Defiance could accomplish. The experimental quantum shielding was compromised, and the plasma weapons were overheating. But 50,000 people on the planets below depended on them. Dead or alive, those colonists needed the Defiance to continue fighting. All personnel, Jake announced. Prepare for the battle of our existence. The alien armada was approaching and escape was impossible. 9 alien bioships advanced toward the USS Defiance like ravenous predators circling injured quarry. Captain Jake Morrison watched them close in and understood his ship was about to engage in the most crucial battle of its existence. Arya, calculate our survival chances. Jake instructed the ship's artificial intelligence system. The computer's composed voice filled the bridge. Based on present damage assessments and enemy capabilities, our survival probability is 2.7%, Captain. Jake nearly smiled despite the dire circumstances. He'd always valued Arya's straightforward responses, even when they weren't encouraging. All crew members prepare for evasive actions, Jake announced. We're going to make these aliens earn their victory. The alien vessels surrounded the Defiance in a flawless circle. Their living hulls had transformed in color and texture after analyzing the human weaponry. Where they'd once been sleek and dark, they were now covered in reflective armor that could deflect plasma fire from critical regions. They're adapting more rapidly than anticipated, Lieutenant Commander Rick Barnes stated. Captain, these ships aren't merely healing damage, they're evolving in real time. The initial assault came from 6 vectors simultaneously. Streams of molecular disruption energy extended toward the Defiance like the tentacles of some horrifying space entity. Jake gripped his chair as the ship plunged and rolled, attempting to evade the lethal beams. Quantum shielding at 30%, Danny Walsh reported from engineering. His voice strained as he struggled to maintain ship systems. Sir, we can't endure many additional strikes like that. Commander Lisa Carter discharged the plasma weapons at the closest alien ship. The blue-white energy hit the bioship's new adaptive hull, but this time most plasma energy was deflected. Only minimal damage penetrated the alien vessel. They're learning too rapidly, Lisa stated with frustration. Each time we strike them, they become better at neutralizing our weapons. The alien ships moved nearer, constricting their circle around the human vessel. Jake realized they were attempting to ensnare the Defiance so it couldn't escape. Soon the bioships would be close enough that their molecular disruption weapons couldn't possibly miss. Danny, can you provide more power to the propulsion? Jake questioned. I'm attempting, Captain, but the quantum shielding is consuming excessive power. If I divert energy to the engines, our defenses will fail entirely. Jake faced a decision. Maintain the shields and perish gradually, or eliminate the defenses and attempt to outpace the alien ships. Neither choice was acceptable, but he needed to select one. Amy, are you still connected with anyone on the planets? Jake asked. Lieutenant Amy Parker confirmed. Yes, sir. Some colonists reached underground refuges. They have communications equipment there. An idea crystallized in Jake's mind. It was desperate and probably wouldn't succeed, but it surpassed simply waiting to perish. Can you link me to them? Yes, sir. Connecting you immediately. A new voice emerged over the communications system. It was a man who sounded terrified but resolute. This is Colony Administrator Ben Rogers. Who's calling? Mr. Rogers, this is Captain Morrison of the USS Defiance. We're here to assist, but we require your help. Captain, thank heavens you're here, but there's only one of you against so many of them. How can we possibly help? Jake looked at Rick Barnes. Rick, do the colonies still maintain their sensor arrays? Rick verified his instruments. Yes, sir. The aliens demolished the orbital platforms, but the ground-based sensors remain functional. Mr. Rogers, Jake spoke into the communicator. I need you to activate all your sensor systems and connect them together. We're going to establish a sensor grid that encompasses this entire star system. I understand, Captain. Give us 5 minutes. While the colonists worked planet-side, the Defiance continued evading alien fire. The bioships were drawing closer, and their weapons were becoming more precise. Jake could sense his ship failing around him as systems crashed and the hull sustained more damage. Shields down to 15%, Danny reported. Captain, we're running out of options. Then Amy's console illuminated with new signals. Sir, the colonists have succeeded. All their sensor arrays are online and networked. Jake felt a glimmer of hope. Arya, can you interface with the colonial sensor grid? Interfacing now, Captain. Network connection complete. Suddenly, the central screen filled with comprehensive information about every alien ship in the system. Jake could observe precisely where they were positioned, their velocity, and even which direction they were about to maneuver. Lisa, use the network data to aim our weapons, Jake commanded. Lisa's eyes widened as she witnessed all the information flowing to her station. Captain, I can predict where they're heading before they realize it themselves. The Defiance's plasma weapons discharged with renewed precision. Rather than striking where the alien ships were located, they struck where the ships were about to be. 3 bioships sustained direct impacts before they could modify their defensive positioning. But the aliens were learning from this too. Jake watched as their formation began shifting, becoming more erratic and harder to anticipate. "They're adapting to our prediction algorithm," Rick cautioned. "In several more minutes, they'll be maneuvering too unpredictably for us to follow." Jake knew he was depleting his options. The ship was severely damaged, the weapons were overheating, and the aliens were becoming smarter with every passing moment. But then Dr. Kate Stevens's voice transmitted from the medical section with an idea that could rescue them all or destroy them. "Captain, I've been analyzing the quantum core data. There might be a method to weaponize our faster-than-light drive." "Explain," Jake stated. "If we overload the quantum core, it will generate a space-time disruption field. Theoretically, it could affect anything within several thousand kilometers." Danny's voice expressed concern. "Kate, that's never been attempted. We don't know if the ship could withstand that kind of detonation." "We don't know if we'll survive the next 5 minutes either," Kate countered. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all observing him, awaiting his judgment. Outside, the alien ships were converging for the final assault. "How long would it require to prepare?" Jake questioned. 10 minutes to reconfigure the core," Danny stated. "But Captain, we'd need to position ourselves at the center of their formation for maximum impact." Jake comprehended what that entailed. They would need to fly directly into the middle of 9 alien warships, withstand everything those ships could unleash at them, and hope they survived long enough to activate an experimental weapon that might eliminate them all. "Do it," Jake stated. "Modify the quantum core. We're going to demonstrate to these aliens what humans do when they're cornered." The Defiance turned toward the center of the alien formation and commenced its final assault run. The USS Defiance charged directly into the core of the alien formation like a missile fired from a launcher. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as hostile fire illuminated space around his vessel. 9 bioships poured their molecular disruption weapons into the human ship, attempting to halt it from reaching the center of their formation. "Quantum shielding collapsing on all decks," Danny Walsh shouted from engineering. His voice was barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and detonations. "Hull ruptures on decks 4, 7, and 9. Emergency barriers are sealing, but we're venting atmosphere rapidly." Jake watched the central display as fragments of his ship's outer hull were ripped away by the alien weaponry. The Defiance was disintegrating around him, but she continued flying. The experimental human battleship was more resilient than anyone had predicted. "How much longer do you require?" Jake called down to Danny. 8 more minutes to complete the quantum core modifications," Danny responded. "But Captain, I'm uncertain if we'll survive that long." The ship trembled violently as another molecular disruption beam struck the bridge section. Sparks erupted from control panels and the illumination flickered. Commander Lisa Carter was hurled from her station but climbed back and continued discharging the plasma weapons. "We're inside their formation now," Lisa reported. "The alien ships are struggling to target us without striking each other." Jake realized she was correct. The bioships had formed such a compressed circle around the Defiance that their own weapons were becoming hazardous to their companions. It was a minor advantage, but Jake would accept anything available. "Amy, transmit a message to Earth Command," Jake commanded. "Inform them what we're about to attempt. If this fails, at least they'll understand we tried." Lieutenant Amy Parker's hands trembled as she operated her controls. "Message transmitted, Captain. Earth Command acknowledges, and they're offering their farewell, sir." Jake felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Even Earth Command believed they were about to perish. Perhaps they were correct. But Jake wasn't prepared to surrender yet. Lieutenant Commander Rick Barnes was examining his sensor data when he suddenly looked up with excitement. "Captain, I've uncovered something significant about the alien ships. They're not merely connected through communication. They're linked through some form of quantum entanglement." "What does that signify?" Jake questioned. "It signifies they share consciousness and information instantaneously across any distance. They possess a collective intelligence like a hive organism." "But sir, if our quantum core detonation disrupts that connection," Jake understood instantly. "The detonation wouldn't merely destroy the ships physically, It would assault their shared consciousness and potentially disable alien armadas across multiple star systems. "Danny, did you hear that?" Jake called to engineering. "I heard it, Captain," Danny responded. "The quantum field will disrupt their mental link, but we must be precisely at the center of their formation when it detonates." The Defiance pushed deeper into the alien formation. Hostile fire was arriving from all vectors now, but the bioships were being more cautious to avoid striking each other. Jake exploited this to his advantage, remaining close to one alien ship and using it as cover against the others. Dr. Kate Stevens's voice transmitted from the medical section. "Captain, we have 37 crew members wounded and 5 deceased, but the survivors are all at their stations and prepared to see this through." Jake felt immense pride in his crew. They knew they were probably going to perish, but they were still performing their duties. These were the kind of individuals who made humanity extraordinary. 6 minutes remaining, Danny announced. "The Quantum Core is nearly prepared." Colonel Sam Hughes, the Marine commander, entered the bridge. His uniform was damaged, and he had a gash on his forehead, but he remained standing. "Captain, my Marines are ready for anything. If those alien ships attempt to board us, we'll give them a confrontation they won't forget." The alien bioships appeared to detect that the human vessel was planning something dangerous. They began concentrating their fire more accurately, attempting to destroy the Defiance before it could complete whatever it was executing. The molecular disruption beams struck the ship repeatedly. "Quantum shielding completely eliminated," Danny reported. "We're down to bare hull now. Any additional damage and we'll lose life support." Jake watched fragments of his ship drifting away into space. The Defiance resembled a wounded creature, but she was still advancing forward. The human ship had reached the precise center of the alien formation. 4 minutes remaining, Danny stated. "Captain, the aliens are attempting to break away from us. They sense something is wrong." Jake examined the tactical display. The bioships were indeed attempting to distance themselves from the Defiance, but they were too closely packed. In their enthusiasm to destroy the human ship, they had ensnared themselves in a compressed formation. "Don't let them escape," Jake commanded Lisa. "Fire everything we possess. Keep them near us." The plasma weapons discharged their final shots, not attempting to destroy the alien ships, but to shepherd them back toward the center. It succeeded. The bioships moved back into the most compressed possible formation, precisely where Jake needed them. 2 minutes remaining, Danny announced. All crew members should prepare for the quantum field impact. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system one final time. "All personnel, this is the captain. In 2 minutes, we're going to detonate our quantum core. We're uncertain if we'll survive, but we know that 50,000 colonists are depending on us. It has been an honor to serve with all of you." Amy was still monitoring the colonial communications grid. "Captain, the colonists are observing us on their sensors. They understand what we're doing." Jake thought about all those people in their underground shelters, observing the solitary human ship battling against impossible circumstances to preserve their lives. He hoped they would remember this moment and recognize that humanity never abandons its own. 1 minute remaining, Danny stated. "Quantum core detonation sequence is activated. Captain, once I initiate the final countdown, there's no reversing it." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa Carter was still at her weapons station, prepared to battle until the end. Amy Parker was monitoring all communications, keeping them connected to the colonists they were attempting to rescue. Rick Barnes was collecting scientific data that might assist future human ships. They were all performing their duty. "Do it, Danny," Jake stated. "Initiate the countdown." "Quantum core detonation in 60 seconds, Danny announced. The alien bioships appeared to comprehend what was about to occur. They discharged everything they possessed at the Defiance, attempting to destroy the human ship before it could activate its weapon. The bridge filled with smoke and sparks as systems collapsed all around them. 30 seconds, Danny stated. Jake made one final judgment. "Aria, convert whatever remains of our quantum shielding from defensive mode to protective mode. Shield the crew compartments." "Converting shielding now, Captain," the computer responded. "Warning. This will leave the outer hull entirely unprotected." 20 seconds, Danny counted down. The alien weapons tore through the Defiance's unprotected hull, but the converted shielding held around the crew areas. Jake's gamble was succeeding. 10 seconds, Danny stated. Captain, it's been an honor serving with you. Jake smiled. The honor was mine, Danny. Everyone brace for quantum detonation. The countdown reached 0, and the USS Defiance vanished in a sphere of twisted space and time. The quantum detonation created a sphere of distorted space and time that consumed the entire alien armada. For an instant, reality itself appeared to warp and twist, as the USS Defiance's experimental core released all its energy simultaneously. The 9 bioships that had surrounded the human vessel simply disappeared, eliminated from existence by forces they couldn't comprehend or counter. The detonation transmitted ripples through space that traveled faster than light itself. These ripples followed the quantum connections between the alien ships, carrying the destructive energy to biofleets in distant star systems across the galaxy. Alien commanders suddenly discovered their ships going dormant as the psychic shockwaves struck their collective consciousness. When the illumination faded, the USS Defiance remained. Captain Jake Morrison opened his eyes and discovered himself lying on the floor of his bridge. His ears were ringing and his head ached, but he was breathing. Around him, his crew was slowly regaining their feet. The quantum shielding's protective mode had succeeded, preserving them from the worst consequences of their own weapon. "Report, everyone," Jake stated as he struggled to stand. "Who's still with us?" "Engineering here," came Danny Walsh's faint voice. "I'm breathing, but the ship is entirely dead. No propulsion, no weapons, no life support. We're operating on emergency battery power exclusively." "Medical section reporting," said Dr. Kate Stevens. "We have injuries, but no new fatalities from the detonation. The protective shielding rescued us." Jake looked around the bridge. The walls were scorched, and most control panels were dark, but his people were alive. Lieutenant Amy Parker was checking her communications equipment while Commander Lisa Carter examined the weapons systems. "Amy, can you reach the colonies?" Jake questioned. Amy worked for several minutes with her damaged equipment before establishing a signal. "Yes, sir, I have them." The voice of Colony Administrator Ben Rogers filled the bridge. He sounded like he was weeping. "Captain Morrison, is that truly you? We witnessed the detonation. We believed you were deceased." "We're alive, Mr. Rogers," Jake responded. "What's the condition of the alien armada?" "Captain, they're eliminated. All of them. The detonation didn't merely destroy the ships that were assaulting us. We're receiving reports from other colonies throughout this sector that alien armadas everywhere have simply ceased functioning. It's like their ships all shut down simultaneously." Jake felt a surge of relief wash through him. The quantum disruption had performed even better than they had anticipated. The collective consciousness that connected all the alien bioships had been shattered by the detonation. Lieutenant Commander Rick Barnes was examining the few sensors that still functioned. "Captain, I'm detecting wreckage from the alien ships, but it's unusual. The organic material is decomposing rapidly, like it can't exist without the psychic connection." Jake realized what this indicated. The aliens weren't merely technologically reliant on their hive intelligence. They were biologically reliant on it. Without their collective consciousness, their ships were perishing. "Sir," Amy stated, "I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Rescue vessels are launching to retrieve us." Jake looked out the viewing window of his devastated bridge. In the distance, he could observe small craft ascending from the surface of New Haven Colony's primary planet. The colonists were coming to assist the people who had preserved their lives. Over the following hours, the rescue vessels brought the crew of the Defiance aboard and transported them to the colony's principal city. Jake was astonished to discover that the underground shelters had protected most of the population. Nearly 45,000 people had survived the alien assault. The colonists treated the crew of the Defiance like champions. Everywhere Jake traveled, people thanked him and his crew for preserving their lives. Children who had been hiding in protective shelters just hours earlier were now playing in the streets again. 3 months later, Jake stood in a conference chamber at Earth Command. Admiral Pete Collins was there along with several other high-ranking commanders. On the table before them were the comprehensive records of the battle at New Haven Colony. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Collins stated, "what you and your crew accomplished was the most significant military action in human history. The data from your battle has enabled us to develop new weapons and defenses based on your prototype systems." Jake looked at the designs for new vessels that covered the walls of the conference chamber. Dozens of ships like the Defiance were being constructed in shipyards across human territory. Each one carried quantum shielding and plasma weapons like the ones that had preserved New Haven colony. The aliens have completely retreated from human space, the Admiral continued. Long-range sensors indicate their fleets withdrawing to the far edge of the galaxy. It appears that losing their collective consciousness has left them incapable of coordinating large-scale assaults. Jake was pleased to hear this, but he had a question. "Sir, what about the Defiance? Can she be reconstructed?" Admiral Collins smiled. "Captain, the Defiance has been completely reconstructed using everything we discovered from your battle. She's awaiting you at the orbital shipyard along with a fleet of identical vessels. We're designating them the Defiance Class battleships." Jake felt a surge of pride. His ship would continue, and her designation would be carried by dozens of others like her. "Captain," the Admiral stated, "I'm offering you command of the entire Defiance fleet. You would be responsible for protecting all of humanity's frontier colonies." Jake considered the offer. It was a tremendous honor, but he also thought about the 50,000 people on New Haven colony who were alive because one ship had been willing to battle impossible circumstances. "Sir, I accept the command," Jake stated, "but I want to retain the original Defiance as my flagship. That ship and her crew demonstrated that humans will never abandon their own people, regardless of the circumstances." 6 months later, the reconstructed USS Defiance led a fleet of 20 identical ships out of Earth's solar system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his new bridge, surrounded by many of the same crew members who had battled the aliens at New Haven colony. Amy Parker was still his communications officer, now promoted to lieutenant commander. Lisa Carter had become his executive officer, and Danny Walsh was the chief engineer for the entire fleet. Dr. Kate Stevens managed the medical facilities on all 20 ships. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about how dramatically things had transformed. Humanity was no longer concealing itself in its home system, fearful of what might be waiting in the darkness between the stars. Now human ships carried weapons that could defeat any adversary, and crews that would battle to the final breath to protect innocent people. The aliens had discovered an important lesson at New Haven colony. Humanity would defend itself, and it would never surrender. The galaxy was an enormous place, but it was vast enough for both species as long as they respected each other's boundaries. Jake looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there were more colonies that might require assistance someday. When that moment arrived, the Defiance fleet would be prepared. The prototype had become a legend, and the legend had become humanity's shield against the darkness of space.